Hi, good evening. It's Dean from the maverickstar Observatory. Guys, a few good things coming up in this video. We're going to have a progress report. I'll show you where we are with the Muon detectors. We're nearly finished on those. We're going to talk about this equatorial jet stream because these are rare events. You don't see these all the time, and maybe this is something we're going to start seeing a lot more of. And also we've got later on a photograph that a pilot's taken, I believe around about 38,000 feet over the northern hemisphere, of the northern aurora boreas, and it's a phenomenal photograph. I just want to also mention that pilots are mentioning the intensity of the aurora over the northern hemisphere is increasing. So it could be due to a couple of things: more cosmic radiation coming through our atmosphere, and in turn leaking through the magnetosphere as the magnetosphere weakens on the Earth during this pole reversal. And it could also be due to the fact that the last 33 years we've had an exponential decrease in the amount of sunspots, and therefore the heliosphere has weakened and allowing more cosmic radiation in. And of course the northern hemisphere is going to show us the effects of those extra ionizing properties, and we're going to see more phenomenal and exotic auroras over these regions. So before I get into it, as usual, I want to thank those few people yesterday that had took it upon themselves to support our observatory and the activity and what we're doing here. So kudos to you guys. I put a lot of hard work in, and we've got some really great people around the world that are taking our magnetometers on, and we're only a few days away from cracking the SD cards out of the Trimag system and the magnetosphere sensor, and finding out what's been going on with our Earth's magnetic North Pole over the last month. So big thanks to you guys, and if I can only just encourage a few more people, come on guys, we've got 30,000 people subscribing to this, and I do believe the information that we collect and gather through our equipment in the field is worth a little bit of support. So the link's there, and that's all I'm going to say about that. Okay, so this equatorial jet stream, obviously what's causing it, you can see, is that cyclic event just above the equatorial region, and it's drawing that polar jet stream straight down round that cyclic event and over the equatorial region, and it's leaking down into the southern hemisphere. What we've got here is Arctic wind, first of all, being transferred directly into the subtropical region, and when that happens we get a lot of precipitation. And I wouldn't put too many bets on it, but I would suggest that where that jet stream is tracking over the equatorial region, it is depositing a lot of water in that region. But we're seeing this a lot more often, guys, and this is what causes your flash floods. And if it's the other way around, and if this had been fired from the tropics up to the polar jet streams, we would have had snow, and a lot of it. And when these jet streams are low hanging, they are drawing that cooler temperature from the northern hemisphere further down into the tropics, and that's why we're getting these islands, the southern islands of China and Japan and places like that experience breaking records for snow and frost. And let's just look at what's happened over the last few years, guys, with losses of cattle in the tone of millions, and not to mention the losses of crops. And that's because they just got caught unexpectedly out and didn't expect anything like this. And it just shows you that our weather system now and our climate can deliver sporadic weather anomalies. You can have flash freezing. I remember about 5 years ago when I started really noticing something extraordinary about our weather. In the summer you could be sitting outside on a chair, enjoying the nice warmth of the day, and an hour later it would be cold. You would actually feel a bitter cold in the air, and that shows you how fast our temperature can change. We seem to have lost our seasons that we could rely on before, and we are now in a mixed match of seasons, and they can come at any time of the year. It's completely crazy. What I want to do is get this photo for you of the aurora. I think it's absolutely amazing. I don't think many people have seen the aurora from, the cockpit of a plane at 38,000 feet. So let's get that up for you, and then we'll have a little progress report on how we're getting on with these Muon detectors, because at the end of the day, the sooner we get these Muon detectors out in the field, the sooner we can collect the data off the the regions of our planet where the low intensities are at the lowest and the highest are at the highest. And of course we're talking about Brazil and South Central Australia. Much nearly finished these two Muon detectors. These are the ones that are going to go out to Brazil and South Central Australia. This is one that's finished. You can see you have to wrap the Cinquelet crystal to stop photons of light getting in there and triggering the a strike on there. And they also get wrapped underneath this foil with underneath this tape, black tape, with some aluminium foil. It just completely blocks out the light. But you can see there's a couple of components we've got to put on the boards. I'll just take off the Cinquelet because I haven't bolted it down yet. But we've got to put the Arduino on there. You can see that on this one. We're not going to fit that unless we've got problems with the board, because this adapter is only really for plugging into the oscilloscope to troubleshoot, along with these 3 pins here. So with these 3 pins you can test different circuits on the board to make sure what you've got is actually working. You can see the work that's gone into it, and this, like I was saying to you, this chip here just there and this one in particular are the worst ones to put on the board, because if I just zoom in you'll see how small the legs are on them. Very small, and it's very easy to make a mistake. But they're coming on, and they should be finished by the weekend. I have got to order one component, which if I can show you on here is that there. Don't know off the top of my head what it's called, but my fingernail's just touching it there on the top. One of those, because it fits on those two big footprints there. I think it's to do with the, if I'm right, the DC-DC booster. This is what happens when you get a strike from the silicon photomultiplier, or SIPM. It goes through a peak hold signal because it's very fast, and the reason why you've got a peak hold signal on this board is because the Arduino clock speed is very slow. So goes through a peak hold, it holds the peak until the Arduino has been able to register it. It also gets the voltage of the actual peak hold gets increased to I think around about 29 volts. That again is so that it can be detected as a strike, and then goes back to the Arduino, and then the Arduino filters it back to the screen, the OLED, and in turn we can see how many strikes over what period of time it has taken. And that pretty much is how the whole thing is working. But these are the heart of the operation. It's that silicon photomultiplier there. What we'd see if you got a microscope and put it under there is hundreds of little squares, and they're just PNP junctions. If you know anything about electronics, you'll know what I'm talking about. It's like hundreds of little LEDs. The junction that gets surrounded by gallium arsenide. It's hundreds of those. And what happens is when a tiny bit of light passes through, when a muon passes through this crystal Cinquelet, it emits a certain amount of light. And if it's a very faint amount of light, with the quality of these silicon photomultipliers, it will pick it up. These work on a certain wavelength. I forget now. I think it's about 420 or to about 500 in the frequency. So it's like a tuned piece of crystal. So we're getting there, guys. It isn't going to be long before we get them in the field, and I'm really excited to see what results we do get back from Brazil, especially because that is a region of our planet which is in the mid-Atlantic anomaly. In other words, it's just the lowest magnetic intensity on our planet, and it would be interesting to see exactly what's going on in that region with the amount of cosmic rays that are striking the upper atmosphere and in turn producing muons, and in turn we can detect them with this equipment that we've got here. And also it would be interesting to see what level of protection you get in a region of the Earth like South Central Australia with regards to protection. Does it block out a lot of muons? Well, as soon as these muons detectors go out into the field, along with the the magnetometers over there, and we're going to put a little bit of a kit together, which I think will probably include a CO2 meter as well, just out of curiosity. I would like to know what sort of levels of CR2 are in different regions of the Earth, and if there are equipment and there are people that have got them, then it's a trustworthy source, as opposed to relying on what these organisations are saying. So yeah, we're getting there. It's been a lot of hard work. Even to do what I've done on these boards has taken nearly 2 days, because I've tried to take my time. The first one of these I built was a real ugly looking thing on the back, but it worked, and gradually they're getting better and better. And I suppose that's because my skills at science, at soldering are improving. You get to find out what you've got to do, and you just get quicker and quicker at it. So yeah, we're not far off finishing them. It's a case of the board, putting that component on the back, and that's pretty much all the surface mount components on there. You can see how small they are. You have to handle these with tweezers. I found a nice little technique of soldering. What I'll do is, say if I've got to put one on these two footprints here, I'll solder the first one, and then I get the tweezers in one hand with the components on it and the soldering iron in the other, and I just move it into it, and then I dab with the soldering iron and get it hot, and it just flows straight away. And oh yeah, I forgot to tell you guys, did you notice in the video that I done the other day, the first SIP when I was mounting the SIPMs, it's a good job I watched that video, because I realised what I'd done. The first SIPM and the pin 1 was mounted correctly, but I didn't, when I got the second PCB board to mount the SIPM, I didn't have the number 1 marking, pin 1 on the SIPM. I had it upside down, and I soldered the SIPM upside down, can you believe it? But luckily enough, I was able to get it off, resolder it in the correct position, and put it back together. But can you imagine the grief that would have caused if I hadn't have spotted it on the video? It would have been a catastrophe. I could have been playing about with this, trying to get it to work for days and days and days, if I'd even thought that I'd even made such a stupid mistake. It's unbelievable, isn't it? Anyhow, let's have a look at this aurora that was photographed by a pilot at 38,000 feet. I think you'll find it really interesting. So tell me what you think. Look at this for an aurora borealis over the northern hemisphere. This was taken by a pilot. The photo comes from social media, obviously, but it was taken from the cockpit of the plane, I believe, at about 40,000 or around about 38,000 feet. And can you imagine sitting in a cockpit just watching that for about an hour and a half? It's not often that you get to see auroras in such great display like that, but it's even rarer when you're at 38,000 feet. And I bet that was absolutely amazing, and fascinating to see, as he was flying over, the Atlantic. It would be like flying through interstellar gas, wouldn't it? Out in space. Just shows us, we live on an absolutely amazing and never failing to seize, to surprise, us with something. I always think about this. This reminds me of some of the thoughts I have. I remember one day looking out the window, and I thought, the sky changes every day, doesn't it? It's like a brand new picture every single day for us. The clouds are never two the same. I don't know, a lot of people are going to say, especially when you get chemtrails, but it's never ever a boring earth, is it? There's always something going on with nature itself. And we're going to see these things become more acute. We're going to see the auroras intensify as more cosmic radiation comes through the heliosphere, and in turn interacts with our magnetosphere. And we're going to see weather and seasons change over the coming years. And like I've said, guys, you know, we have not reached an equilibrium with the grand solar minimum at this moment, and we've definitely not reached an equilibrium with regards to the magnetic poles reversing on our planet. And that means that we are still in for it. Things are going to get worse, and I don't know what is going to happen when the magnetosphere completely drops down during that period of time when the needles are in reverse, when they go into those weak field lines and they shift. I don't know what we're going to expect. The only thing we can do is like we already are doing, you know, get the equipment out in the field, find out in the weakest parts of the region of the earth what's going on there, and then compare it to the stronger parts. So if there's plenty of protection in the stronger parts, less in the weaker parts, then, you know, as the poles and these high intensity regions shift, if it does become a matter of life and death, then you know, we need to relocate into these regions where we have protection. Otherwise, you know, the risks are just increased as the magnetosphere depletes, as the heliosphere depletes, and then on top of that, food production and severe weather changes, you know, all affect us. You know, you're starting to see, I hope now, the reality of all these things that are starting to appear before us in this gauntlet as I describe it. You know, it's not just like what a lot of us was probably concerned with, you know, the economic collapse being the worst thing that could ever happen. No, we see now that there's plenty of things that can lead to the same effects. And, you know, we are, without a doubt, going to go through them. You know, you really do need to start preparing, guys. Even if you've got no preparation, prepare for a week. A week is better than nothing at all. But really speaking, you should have 6 months to a year's worth of food, and you don't have to have you know, the luxurious items. Just go for the, you know, the bare essentials, something that you can eat that will keep you alive. If it's a sack of rice per person, and, you know, just do a little bit of calculations. How much rice do you need to eat a day? How many people are in your family? How many sacks do you need for a month or 2 months or the year? And go out there and get them, because it is the only insurance policy that will pay out during a crisis. I'm sure you'll agree with me on that. And if you don't use them, then it doesn't make no difference. It's not like an insurance policy that's going to come up for renewal in 12 months time. You know, if you store your food right, you can make it last 5-6 years, and that's a good insurance policy. If it costs a couple of $100, you know, for you to do that for your family, then you should seriously consider it. And if you can afford to do that, and you can afford to just do a little bit more, you know, buy yourself a hand axe, buy yourself a fire striker, you know, start weighing up around where you live, or where you can get to, where you can start finding food off the, you know, open land, where you can get firewood from, where you can keep your family warm and dry. You know, can you build yourself a little shelter? You know, grab yourself a few bungees. You know, I'll tell you what we'll have to do. We'll have to get my bug out bag out of the loft and just strip it down and show you what I've got, and then show you what I've got in terms of food preparation, and you know, it'll give you a little idea. I mean, I'm not you know, I'm not a professional bug out expert, but I do know what I've got is adequate. You know, I've got enough purifying tablets to purify 3 tons of water. I've got you know, water purification pumps that'll do another 2 tons of water. Each filter, I've got a few filters, so, you know, another 4 tons of water. You know, it's enough to get you by short term. I'm pretty confident in my own abilities that, you know, I can get out there, I can find water, I can clean that water, and I can also find food if I need to off the land. It's not a problem. And you could as well. You know, a good thing would be buy a bug out book, you know, like a survivalist book, and also buy a natural remedy book. You know, a tree, it shows you the trees where you can get some medicines that will cure certain ailments, because if the pharmaceuticals you know, are no longer in the shops and you need medication, where are you going to get it from? Especially if it's medication that keeps you alive, where are you going to get it from? You know, just saying, guys. Okay, you know, I'll mention the link is down there. You know, we do need support, guys. You know, we're trying to push a lot more equipment out into the field this year, and you know, we really have hit the ground running already with another 4 magnetometers built, another 2 Muon detectors, which will be going out into the field early or late this month, early next month, and you know, we'll be getting the results in from it. You know, it doesn't require millions of pounds of funding. We're not asking you to sell your house, but guys, just chip in, join the rest of us. There's only a couple of hundred of us on Patreon. You know, join us, help us out, and we all benefit from the, you know, the results of what we get back out of the field with the data that we collect. Okay, I won't go on. Enjoy the rest of your evening, guys. As always, bye for now.